Hello everybody, this is Gary here, and since this is going to be a video about literary attention spans, and speaking of attention spans, here's someone who, you got to go fast with. Pom-poms help a lot. Pom-poms. Oh, now we're interested, aren't we? Look here. Pom-pom. Go get it. Go get the pom-pom. Basically, what I want to talk about today and get your thoughts on is the question, do you have the literary attention span of a gnat? Or is your attention span a little bit more developed? We have, if you are a budding writer, such as I think of myself as being budding from one decade to the next, perhaps into perpetuity budding, who knows, but and you're someone who reads a lot of blogs, you watch a lot of videos, you read a lot of books about how to get published, what things you need to do to make it more likely that your writing is looked at and published and seriously considered. The refrain that I'm hearing almost universally now that has become more pervasive in just the last few years is that you must grab the reader's attention immediately. It's got to be there in that very first sentence, or the game is lost. I wonder if that's true for you. I wonder what your thoughts on that. Must the books you read grab you right from the beginning, or can you give a book a little bit of time to get going? It used to be many years ago when I was younger that I would hear that people would say, they'd give a book 50 pages, 2 or 3 chapters, sometimes 10, 20 pages, and if that didn't work, then they would give up on it. Some people would read half of a book before giving up on it if it didn't work for them. Some people are, of course, we always have our completist among us who, once they start something, they must finish it, whether they like it or not, and I'm certainly not in that category. But I wonder about this thinking that, something must grab us right from the beginning, or, it's just not worth a damn. And this thinking seems to, in all of the blogs and the helpful videos and that I read, or almost all of them, this is just really a common refrain that right from the first sentence, you don't have the first page, you don't have the first few pages, or even the first paragraph. It's the first sentence has to grab you right away. And maybe this is something new nowadays. It may have been 30 years ago, 20 years ago, this was not the case. I think there's probably something to that. I think that people have a lot more distractions, a lot more things we know that take our attention away from reading. Reading, I think, is really suffering right now in our country, perhaps in the world. I don't know. I do know that I've gone to the library. I began going downtown to the main branch in our town here in the past year and a half or so. I used to go down there all the time decades ago, and then just for convenience I started going to my local branch, and sometimes I'd have books transferred from the main library to my local branch. But I don't know, I just like being at the main library now, and I like searching in the stacks, and I've noticed that the staff, when I go in there, is like all over me, almost from the moment that I get there until the time I leave, wanting to help. Is there something we can help you find? Is there something you're looking for? Do you want us to order something for you? And I wonder why was this? I mean, this didn't just happen once or twice. It's almost every time I go. And I asked someone there, and they said that the library attendance, the patronage is so low right now. And she sort of made a sort of half joke, an ironic joke really, about job security. People aren't checking things out like they used to. And So anyway, I think there is something to the attention span has narrowed of the reading public, but I wonder if it's quite to the point that we're being told. So as an experiment, I thought that I would read the openings without revealing what the books are until after I read them. I thought I would read a few books that I think have very compelling, gripping openings that I think probably, we're not all going to love the same thing, but probably most of us would agree are pretty good, and some that are maybe, okay, not so great, maybe a little intriguing, but we might be surprised when we learn what the book is. So I wonder really about this value of this thinking of this first sentence or first paragraph notion. So first read. And I'm only going to read the first few lines of this, and I forgot my glasses. Oh God, let's hope this goes well. Okay. He had to have planned it because when we drove onto the dock, the boat was there, and the engine was running, and you could see the water churning up phosphorescence in the river, which was the only light there, was because there was no moon nor no electric light, either in the shack where the dockmaster should have been sitting, nor on the boat itself, and certainly not from the car. Yet everyone knew where everything was, and when the big Packard came down the ramp, Mickey the driver braked it so that the wheels hardly rattled the boards. And when he pulled up alongside the gangway and the doors were already open, they hustled Bo and the girl upside before they even made a shadow in all that darkness. Would you read that? What do you think of that opening? There's something there, isn't there? That's pretty good, I think. I think probably when Billy Bathgate was originally published about 30 years ago, this is an ad for Captain Blood showing at a theater here. That would have been much more of a grabber than what it is now. But I don't know. It's a fantastic book. It's a good opening. We'd probably read that, wouldn't we? Okay, here's another opening. This is just a few sentences. The first chapter, and this is actually a prologue of a big book by one of my favorite authors. The prologue is called Special Delivery. There came death, hurtling along the boulevard in waning sepia light. There came death flying as in a children's cartoon on a heavy, unadorned messenger's bicycle. There came death unerring, death not to be dissuaded, death in a hurry, death furiously pedaling, death carrying a package marked Special Delivery with Care on a sturdy wire basket behind his seat. You know what that book is? This was a best-selling book. It was made into a television miniseries, now being made into a film as we speak. And I think that most of us would agree that's pretty gripping. Probably most of us would read Joyce Carol Oates' Blonde. That's the opening. That's the opening of that. And let's see about... And some of these you're going to guess what these books are. Okay, here's another one. Big bestseller. Film made from this book. She hurries from the house, wearing a coat too heavy for the weather. It is 1941. Another war has begun. She has left a note for Leonard and another for Vanessa. She walks purposely toward the river, certain of what she'll do, but even now she is almost distracted by the sight of the downs, the church, a scattering of sheep, incandescent, tinged with a faint hint of sulfur, grazing under a darkening sky. She pauses, watching the sheep and the sky, then walks on. The voices murmur behind her, bombers drone in the sky, though she looks for the planes and can't see them. She walks past one of the farm workers. Is his name John? A robust, small-headed man wearing a potato-colored vest, cleaning the ditch that runs along the osier bed. Okay, so This is a woman on the way to commit suicide. It is Virginia Woolf, and this is The Hours. Now, if you're utterly unfamiliar with Woolf and her story, her suicide, her life in general, her writing, I don't know, that might be a little bit interesting. Something's going on there. You might be wondering enough to go on reading more. Probably for a lot of people not familiar with Woolf or her story, I would say no. Huge bestseller, fantastic book by Michael Cunningham, wonderful movie as well. Okay, and here is another huge bestseller, and I think that most of us would agree that both the opening of this is quite good, the book is quite good, and we would definitely, I think from the opening, read this book. The snow in the mountains was melting, and Bunny had been dead for several weeks before we came to understand the gravity of our situation. He'd been dead for 10 days before they found him, you know. It was one of the biggest manhunts in Vermont history. State troopers, the FBI, even an Army helicopter. The college closed, dye factory in Hamden shut down, people coming from New Hampshire, upstate New York, as far away as Boston. That's a pretty compelling opening. We know right away something quite important, that someone is dead, and that this is going to set things in motion, and this is Donna Tartt's The Secret History. And the book is good throughout. You know, so these are, I have a couple more, but video's going to be too long. These are examples where I think they have pretty good openings. We would probably read it, and we would be rewarded. And so let's take a couple of others. This one, I'm going to skip a character's name because I think it might give the book away for a lot of people. Okay. Character's name. Sitting at the window of the upstairs living room in the house on Friary Street, noticed her sister walking briskly from work. She watched Rose crossing the street from sunlight into shade, carrying the new leather handbag that she had bought in Clary's in Dublin in the sale. Rose was wearing a cream-colored cardigan over her shoulders. Her golf clubs were in the hall. In a few minutes, Blank knew someone would call for her, and her sister would not return until the summer evening had failed. The lady's name is Ailish Lacey. This is Brooklyn by Colm Tobin. And I mean, this is just a very, this is a fantastic book. Excellent film made from the book. And, I don't think there's anything particularly grabbing or gripping from that. You are introduced to the character a little bit. You get a little taste of them, but that's not you're not thunderstruck by that. It's just his style. I'm really wondering about this one. What's your reaction to this will be? Okay. May 3rd, Bistritz. Left Munich at 8:35 p.m. on May 1st, arriving at Vienna early next morning. Should have arrived at 6:46, but train was an hour late. Budapest seems a wonderful place from the glimpse which I got of it from the train and the little I could walk through the streets. I feared to go very far from the station, as we had arrived late and would start as near the correct time as possible. The impression I had was that we were leaving the west and entering the east, the most western of splendid bridges over the Danube, which is here of noble width and depth, took us among the traditions of Turkish rule. To me, that's interesting. I certainly wouldn't call it gripping or, it's it's not. It's a bit evocative of someone traveling. It's not terribly stirring or interesting. This is Bram Stoker's Dracula. I love this cover. An acknowledged classic. If it were left to someone new to this work, who really wasn't familiar, which everybody in the world knows Dracula, of course, but really wasn't familiar with it, I wonder if you would keep reading after that first paragraph. Last one. Okay. And this one I'm going to have to leave out a name of a place because it's the title of the book. And most of you are probably going to recognize what this is pretty fast. About 30 years ago, Miss Maria Ward of Huntington, with only £7,000, had the good luck to captivate Sir Thomas Bertram of blank blank in the county of Northampton, and to be thereby raised to the rank of a baronet's lady, with all the comforts and consequences of a handsome house and large income. That's okay. It's fine. There's nothing thunderous about that or terribly gripping, but you're sort of being eased into it. You're being introduced. There's assuming that you're an adult and you're intelligent and this is just the beginning. There's more to come, and Jane Austen's Mansfield Park. I love this cover too. So, anyway, that's all the examples I read. Had a few other I was going to go through, but we'll leave them. I think you get the point. What are your? Do you agree with the assessments that the reading public's in 2019 attention span is that of a gnat, or do you think that's overstated? What are your thoughts on that? So, literary attention spans. What do you think? Maybe there's something to it. Maybe that's just where we are right now. There's people have their phones, their computers, their television, and a lot of things are vying for our attention. But I just don't know. I think I'm a bit skeptical about this thinking that we're going to give up after the first sentence or two. And I think that sometimes when you're a writer, that thinking may make you mistakenly write an opening to the book that perhaps the book deserves, is worthy of something a little bit better, a little bit more serious. Anyway, I'd like to know your thoughts. So hope everyone is well. I hope everybody has a great fall. I'll try to do another video soon. Reading lots of fantastic books right now. I'll have some reviews coming up in the next next couple of weeks. And this is just a really great fall for books. We've got Alice Hoffman, we've got a new Joyce Carol Oates, we've got the big Sontag biography by Benjamin Moser. We have the Testaments by Margaret Atwood. So I'll be sharing my thoughts on these books in the next couple of weeks. And until then, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, share, comment, and I'll speak with you soon.